Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. The spot Bitcoin ETFs have been approved, and the SEC absolutely bungled the delivery of the message. No surprise, especially on the heels of the hack that occurred yesterday. I'll explain the specifics. And just so you know, here at the outset, this almost didn't happen. There was a vote on whether or not to approve this. It passed by one vote. Kid you not, these people, my God. Oh, it's a Christmas miracle we got this damn thing, apparently. It's completely ridiculous. Also, I'll briefly, this isn't going to be a video where I go in depth in terms of, what's happening in terms of price action, but I will note here at the outset, and I'll just briefly speak on it. Price is not really doing much anything. It's not a bad day. It's a green day overall, but not exactly hot. I got perspective from a number of individuals, including a couple Ripple executives. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. So here's the headline from Cointelegraph. Spot Bitcoin ETF receives official approval from the SEC. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has officially approved the United States' first regulated spot Bitcoin exchange-traded funds just one day after a false announcement posted from the SEC's official Twitter account wreaked havoc on markets. On January 10th, the securities regulator approved the 19 B4 applications from ARK, 21 shares, and I'm not going to name the rest of them, BlackRock, they're on your screen there, approving the rule changes that allow a spot Bitcoin ETF to be listed and traded on the respective exchanges. The filing was available to download from the SEC website for several minutes before an error 404 message appeared, later becoming live through a different link. And so actually, I don't think that part's quite true, because everybody was sharing the same link, and at first when I was clicking on it, I was getting the same error 404 message on the SEC website, but then the link just started working. And then then I shared the link, and then shortly after that, it stopped working, and people were responding to my post sharing that and saying, hey, we're getting error 404 here. And I'm like, well, just give it time, and then the link started working again later for those people. So it seems to me like what's most probable anyway is that their website was just completely overloaded. Anyway, piece continues. The historic approval paves the way for the first regulated exchange-traded product in the U.S. to give investors direct exposure to the price of Bitcoin without requiring them to buy it or worry about self-custody. Investors will buy shares in ETFs holding Bitcoin as its underlying asset. It was unclear whether the error 404 showing the SEC-approved 11 spot Bitcoin ETF filings was the result of the commission pulling the document or an overload in site traffic. ETF analyst James Seifert posted on X, formerly Twitter, that the commission may not have intended to release the approval document at the time it did, but would likely repost it anyway. Yeah, so again, I don't know for sure. I'm not exactly the systems administrator type, but given that it was in and out and in and out on the same link, despite what they said here, my guess is that it would just be some sort of overload in terms of traffic here. But either way, whether they pulled the document or was an overload in traffic, the SEC bungled the delivery of this. It was not made clear. There was a lot of confusion in the markets early on. It is what it is. I mean, this coming off the heels of them getting hacked yesterday. Now the FBI is investigating that. And I made a video already talking about how X did a preliminary investigation. It's my very last video. If you want to check that out, feel free. Is what it is, but the damn thing's approved, and that's fantastic. And so I wanted to share with you my very favorite meme. Personally, I've seen a ton of memes. There will be more in the future. The one on your screen right now is my favorite. It's from Groundhog Day, the 1993 smash hit movie. You guys know the premise of the movie. If not, just Google it. But here you go. It reads as follows. Well, it's Bitcoin ETF day. Again. You gotta love this. We got 2 Bitcoin ETF days in a row. I thought that was rather fantastic, so I shared that. Here you have a post from Fox Business Journal's Eleanor Terrett, who wrote, this is at 5:18 p.m. Central Time today. New. Turns out the SEC did hold a vote on the Bitcoin spot ETFs. Here's the voting breakdown. And so you had the 2 Republicans, which would be Hester Peirce and Uyeda, approving this, and the 2 Democrats not approving it, voting against this, Crenshaw and Lizarraga. Maybe that's how you say that name. And then there's Gensler, who voted with the Republicans. And it's so interesting that, I mean, these should be situations where, your political party shouldn't matter, but it's all too frequently there's a division among party lines and then a tiebreaker. It is what it is. Just an observance here. But look, if there were one vote, like if Gensler just didn't want this thing, it wouldn't have gone through. Now, he's the one that would have been raked over the coals. So I guess Crenshaw and the other one, Lezaraga, I guess they didn't personally care, but I think Gensler understood that it would be a nightmare for him personally if this didn't go through. So he did end up going through with this, even though I don't think he actually really wanted to. But the writing was on the wall after the SEC lost the lawsuit with Grayscale. But it was that close, folks. One vote off, and oh man. And so I also put out a poll on X here at 12:13 p.m. So this would have been a little less than 3 hours before the news broke that there was official approval. And we all knew this was coming pretty much, but I wanted to get opinions from all sorts of you out there. So I ran a poll for 1 hour and I asked, when the Bitcoin ETF is approved, what will the market do? Poll live for only 1 hour. Buy the news is the first option, or sell the news. And this is again to 12:13 p.m. Central Time, 954 votes, which isn't bad for 1 hour. 45.6% responded buy the news, thinking the price would go up, and 54.4% responded with sell the news. That was the expectation right before this. We didn't really get either. Here we have at 3:04 p.m. I posted the following. It has been roughly 15 minutes since the news broke that the Bitcoin ETFs are approved, and so far, no one is buying the news or selling the news. Did the hack yesterday taint the market reaction that we're seeing today? Bitcoin is no more volatile right now than it has been all day. Okay, and so I was openly questioning what would happen today since we did have the fake news breaking yesterday, and it was a sell the news event. For 15 minutes, the market believed that there was an actual approval, and it did more or less what I thought it was going to do, because my bet, and I made it publicly known on X and on YouTube, that my for fun guess was that we'd have market probably spike up a bit, and then in very short order, move back down. And it was a net loss inside of those 15 minutes. It was extremely volatile, very quickly. And so I openly questioned in a video yesterday, is this, the fact that this happened, when we get the approval tomorrow, is that going to impact what happens today? And I think that might be the case, because if you look at the price action here, I'll pull up a Bitcoin 24-hour chart. This is just on Live Coin Watch. You can see, let's go to around 2:50 p.m. because again, Central Time. This is when the news broke. 2:50. It actually went down slightly, but then quickly went back up a little bit, and then back down, and then up and down. So there's been some volatility, but this doesn't look like anything special. This isn't a buy the news event. This isn't a sell the news event. And it's 7:41 p.m. Central Time at the time I'm recording this, so enough time has passed. We should have seen, if it were going to happen, wouldn't we have seen the big movement if it were going to be based on the news breaking here? To this point, at least, it hasn't been either. And I'm just, again, perhaps guessing that the fake news breaking yesterday probably had something to do with that. Because that sounded like honestly, the response yesterday, that seemed more like what would be a reasonable response for news of this magnitude breaking. But then when it actually broke today, market's like, that's what it looks like to me. And so somebody wrote to me and said, trading starts tomorrow, which is a perfectly fair point. There is no ETF trading, Bitcoin ETF trading today. But even though it's true, and it's a fair enough point, that's not my point. I wasn't expecting volatility today because of that. Of course not. I was expecting it because of regular market participants. And so I wrote, yeah, but the news caused a market reaction yesterday, but not today. So is what it is. Here's a post from Pentoshi. A lot of people disappointed in the Bitcoin price action following the approval. Of course, part of it was priced in. It's why we rallied so much. What we don't know is the real demand following approval. If you did well up until this point, you did your job. The first days are unlikely to matter in the grand scheme. Bitcoin will have a multi-decade TWAP with periods of both high and low demand. It is finite. Fiat is infinite. Yeah, and I think that's a good enough point. We'll see what kind of volume comes through. Some people have big expectations, grand expectations, and my position known. I just think that this matters tremendously over a longer period of time. We'll see what the market does tomorrow. There's this post from Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. Congrats to all who have worked to get Bitcoin spot ETFs approved. Today's news is further legitimization of crypto as an asset class. I expect this will be yet another catalyst for institutional investment / adoption, ideally leading the industry to focus outside primarily speculative to broader real-world use cases underpinning that legitimization. Fair enough point. Here we have a post from Attorney James Murphy, aka Meta Lawman on X. And Hester Peirce just issued another scorcher excoriating Gary Gensler's leadership. Quote, "Our arbitrary and capricious treatment of applications in this area will continue to harm our reputation far beyond crypto." End quote. And then he had another quote from her. "We have alienated a generation of product innovators in this space." End quote. Spot on. Happy to see that. There is this post from Stuart Alderati, Ripple's chief legal officer. "Commissioner Peirce is spot on. This long overdue approval comes only because the court's checked an out-of-control regulator. Gensler's battle royal against crypto has turned the SEC into a caricature not to be trusted by the public, policymakers, or judges." Oh, absolutely, that's true. Then there was another post from James Murphy. Attorney James Murphy said, "A statement from Gary Gensler about approval of the Bitcoin ETFs has just been released. He basically admits that the DC Circuit Court of Appeals forced his hand." And he finishes off by reminding everyone Bitcoin is used for all sorts of criminality. Yeah. And the whole post, it's on your screen right here. I'm not going to, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through and read this. If you want to, it's right there, though. But it's the type of crap that you would expect from him. It really is. It's what you think. There's also this post from attorney Fred Rispoli. This is a quote from Gensler that he's sharing. "As I've said in the past, and without prejudging any one crypto asset, the vast majority of crypto assets are investment contracts and thus subject to federal securities laws." End quote. What a douche Gensler is. My God. And then Rispoli says, he then cites 8 cases. His loss against Ripple was not included. You gotta love that. You've gotta love that. So we'll see what happens here. At the time of recording this, Bitcoin, $46,632. I mean, honestly, the price is about what it was roughly an hour before the news broke even. So it's like it went down, it went up, and it's down. It hasn't done anything. It's just moving sideways. So there's that, I guess. I just think it's tainted because of what happened yesterday. I think the market reaction is tainted because of that. So, but that's fine. You know, it's cool to not have a dramatic sell-off at least. We'll see what happens, though. It doesn't mean there can't be a massive pullback still in the relatively short term here. More on price action in a separate video, because that's not the purpose for this video. Although I will say, just to wrap this up, even if there is a pullback, I still think we're going to have a monster of a 2024, so it wouldn't scare me in the least personally, but I think the best is yet ahead. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!